Meg, just to add. So Meg and I used to be enemies. Or
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap!
Woo! Welcome to the second episode of Abroad Podcast. We are back here with the main ladies of the Abroad Podcast. And by now you've heard our first episode, which was a great introduction about each one of us. And I hope that you've gotten a great sense of our personalities. But you are about to get some more insights of who we really are. And so for this second episode of our podcast, we're going to talk more about our childhood back in Bacolod City, Philippines. We're going to talk about what it was like growing up at home. We're going to talk about how our parents disciplined us. There's always a lot of talks about the American way of disciplining the kids and the Filipino way of doing it. And then we're going to share about our most memorable moments of disciplinary action. Dun, dun, dun. Whatever that means for each one of us, right? So as you know, just as a background too, between me, myself, Sweeney, speaking right now, and Kat, we're going to be going back and forth, hosting different episodes for the next several podcasts. So today, I'm your girl, Sweeney May, on the mic. You guys like how that sounds? We're going to talk about our childhood. So the first question, as I said, it's always controversial of how we were disciplined back home. You know, in America, you're not, you know, there are a lot of rules. I know you guys know what that is. You can't really spank, or you can't really, you know, you can't quote unquote abuse. But that abuse back home was normal. For most of us, you know, and don't get it twisted. It wasn't like super violent or anything, but some of us needed a spanking. Me, one of them. I was one of those. So let's start with the first question. We are going to get right to it. So I'm going to ask Kat first. She's already saying no. Joy's already saying no, not me. I'm going to start with Kat first. So who did you grow up with? Was it your mom, your dad? What was the childhood situation, household? What does that look like? Everyone is going to have to start thinking back. Kat, tell us.
So I was with my parents for since I was born till 6 years old. And when I turned, it was 7. And when I turned 7, that's when my parents left the Philippines and both my mom and my dad went to the States. So then I ended up growing with my grandparents from I was 7 until I was 21 when I moved to LA when I was 21. So pretty much I grew up with my grandparents, my grandma, my grandpa, and my 3 aunts and my uncle. So very much a women empowered household. I only had my grandpa as my father figure. He was a very, very strong father figure, and also my uncle and then my brother. And my brother was actually about only a month old when my parents left. And so I know that it was really, really hard for my mom because she left my brother at a month old. I mean, what mom, would leave a month old infant, home to pursue a career somewhere else in the world to try to provide for their family. So that was a sacrifice on her part. And yeah, that's kind of like my basic background on how I grew up.
All right. So you guys are getting a taste, a little bit of what our childhood might have looked like. And I can assure you that all of us at some point, our parents weren't around. So Meg, you ready to share? Since the microphone's right next to you, what was your household? What did that look like?
So I was with my mom from when I was born until 6 years old. And then my mom and dad were already separated as far as I can remember. And then my mom left for the States when I was 6 years old. And I grew up with my aunt, which was my mom's sister, and her family, my uncle, my younger cousins, and my my nanny. I called her my mamang. She was like my second mom. So I grew up with my aunt and my uncle and their family. Yeah.
Cool. Pauline's next.
I grew up with my mom and my dad, but most of the time my dad would leave us because he's a seaman. So we would see him just probably once a week. There are times also that we would see him once a month also. But most of the time I grew up with my mom. She's full-time with us, and I think it was a great, it was a great childhood for me growing up with my parents, because even though my dad leaves, even though my dad's out, he's still there. He's still there with us, my mom and my dad together. Yeah, that's it.
Joy?
Yeah, also, because our common denominator is that our parents were not really around at a very young age, as young as like 6 years old. A lot of our audience here who are non-Filipinos, they don't understand that concept of leaving your child behind and working at a different country. How much more back then there were like no social media, there are no telephone lines, and I mean there were, but just not like as accessible as it is nowadays. But I think I just want people to understand that growing up in a third world country, there's really not a lot of opportunities for our parents back then to build a life for their kids or what they want for us. All of us went to Catholic school. And back in the Philippines, if you go to a Catholic school, it's an expensive place to send your kids to. And if you just earn regular Filipino wage, it's impossible for you to send your kids there. So a lot of our parents, they want the best for us, of course. So they venture out to different countries to find better opportunities because unfortunately, they can't find it in our native land. Although as much as possible, they want the families together, for sure. But that's just the option that was available. And good thing, a lot of our parents, they're very well educated. They have college degrees. They are professionals. And they come to America and venture out here. And so most of us grow up with nannies. I, for one, grew up with two nannies who has been with us they've been with us since they were 16 or 17. It's not exploitation. It's just we wanted to help their families back then. But now they're in their 50s. They decided just to stay with us. So I grew up with them. Sally and Belinda, shout out to you. And then we had Bert, who was our resident driver. But Sally, Belinda, and Bert, they're like my family. And then I grew up with my brother and my sister. I have a brother and a sister, older. They're 10 years older than me. So that was pretty much my childhood. I would not exchange it with anything else. I mean, it would be ideal if my parents were there, but I think things worked out for the best. And I think things happen for a reason. And I'm closer to my parents now more than ever. And, we have the best relationship I could think of and no regrets.
Perfect. And Joy alluded to the fact that we had help, our nannies, we had drivers, but by no means that means we're rich. Just back home when your parents,
true.
Yeah, when your parents worked abroad, they had to hire full-time help, which means that they lived in your home. And sometimes maybe they live close by so they can go home to their families too. But she did allude to the fact that their nannies were like 16 or something. And then I know here in America for sure, that would not be a legal thing to do. But back in the Philippines, it was not an issue whether it's legal or illegal. It was just a way of life for many of those people that live
out their village,
in villages or poverty areas.
Yeah.
That's how they made a living, is to be of help to another family,
to go to the city.
Yeah. And they were paid. So no, they're not slaves. Just to clarify that. For me,
their family.
Yeah, they become your family.
Yeah.
For me, growing up, my dad was always in America even before I was born. So my mom was there for a good chunk of my childhood until about I was 6 or 7. And then she started working in Japan for like 6 months at a time. And that's to help my dad with the expenses too. So my dad was here in the US and he was working odd jobs, security, maybe doing the people's landscaping. Eventually, he was a cab driver. So he was doing those odd jobs, even though back home he got his bachelor's degree. But that doesn't translate well here in America. And then my mom was with me until about 8, and she was going back and forth to Japan. And then when I was 13, she joined my dad in the US, leaving me and my sister. And when I say leaving me, it sounds so sad, but they had to make US dollars, in order to afford a private school, like Joy said, and all the extracurricular activities that they want to put us in. So when my mom left, I was then under the care of either some family that would stay with us once in a while, or mostly it was with nannies. So we had Chaipas, which is who was our cook and our person that did a lot of laundry and cleaning. And then we had a personal nanny for my sister, because she was young. She's 9 years younger than me. So, even though I took care of her a lot, we still needed a nanny to make sure that there was one person solely focused on her. And we didn't have a car or anything. At some point back then we did, then we had a driver, but we didn't really have a car. So we relied on public transportation. So that's what our households look like. And like Joy said, that for some of you listeners, that might be something that's normal to you as well. So we want you to know that you're not alone, especially for the parents that have to leave their children. It must be really tough. Like Pao and Joy here, they have kids now. Can you imagine, living I don't think you can.
Yeah, no, I don't think I can imagine living Faith here and going to a different country and working. And my parents, I could just not imagine how it was like for them doing that, and all the sacrifices that they had to make. I mean, I can't, I don't know.
What about you, Pao?
I can't really comprehend it.
Of course, same as Joy. I can't, even just for example, if we have a trip somewhere just here in California for 2 days or 3 days, I miss them right away. Literally my husband Fat, he would tell me that, babe, you gotta relax. Just chill. They're okay. My children, I'm just lucky enough that right now my mom's taking care of them. So yeah, I can't. Just for 3 days, 2 days, even now, I'm away from them. I'm I see Koi. I would call them. Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, being a parent.
I totally feel the same exact way. When I left the house today, I told my cat Goose and Boogie, and I said, I'm gonna be gone the whole day, guys. I can't. Maybe I just shouldn't do this podcast, because I'm going to miss you both. So that's just with cats. I can't even imagine with human beings.
That's true. So all the parents out there that have to sacrifice and leave your loved ones at home and go to another country to make more money or find a living for your family, we salute you. Yes, we appreciate that.
And I've just noticed a lot of our friends from back home, our batchmates, they do the same thing right now. They go out of the country, and and I applaud them. It must be hard. It's not easy, but you got to do what you got to do, and it's amazing that that's how life is, and it's just.
It gets tough for sure.
Yeah.
And just for the non-Filipino listeners, we do refer to our class as batch. So, here in America, we say class of 2002 or whatever. We call it batch of 2002. So when we say batch, just how many, 100 plus batchmates? Okay. So we had about
3 different.
Yeah, so we have over 100 something batchmates that we went to school with. So on to our next topic, which is a little bit more touchy maybe, or maybe funny. I mean, I definitely have funny moments, but this is more about discipline. When you were a kid, I want to know, if you think back now to your childhood, was there a moment in time that you were disciplined by your parents, got yelled at, got spanked, got chased? I don't know what the scenario will be, but what is that one moment that you can sit here and look back and either laugh about it or still have painful memories about it? Something that really stands out. Does anyone want to share first? Because I'm not sure if someone is ready or not.
I'm ready. I got stories because I was a really feisty kid. That's why I got stories. So when my mom was still with me up until I was 7 years old, imagine being 5 or 6 or 7 and already being like crazy punished because I guess I had a really potty mouth. Not potty mouth like I would swear, but I would just talk back. Like if I get disciplined, I would like talk. I would have justifications. I would talk back to my mom in a very, very sassy way. So one of the punishments was she would take we call it sili, but it's like a very, very small chili. We have a sili plant in the garden. So she would take sili and then she would literally smother it all over my lips. So then my whole lips would be on fire and it would just like be, what do you call it? Habal.
Spicy.
It would be burning, but it would just get puffy. There you go. My lips would just get puffy because of the sting. So that's one. Another thing was because there's just there's really, really like a lot of different ways that my parents would punish me. I mean, my dad would like literally get a belt, would get anything in the house, whatever it is that he could get his hands into, he would like use it to, to spank me. And then my mom had very, very specific methods. One was the sili, and number 2 is kneeling on salt rocks in front of the altar. So there in our house, we had like this little altar that has it's called the Santo Nino, which is the Saint Saint Nino? Santo Nino? But basically it's the statues and it's the saints of the Philippines, baby Jesus and all that. And so I guess my mom thought that it would be really, really a good way to punish me by having me kneel on salt rocks facing the altar and then putting both my hands out, extending to the side, and have either a can of beans or books on each of my hand. And so I'm literally like spreading my arms out to the side.
At 6 years old.
At 6 years old, yes. With books on my hands or a can of beans, salt rat on my knees, and just crying in front of the altar and maybe asking for forgiveness for what I've done. Well, both. I guess my mom wanted me to ask for forgiveness from both my mom and Jesus because, they're probably equal. I don't know. I'm just kidding. So anyway, so there's that. And then the last thing that I remember too is that my grandfather, when my mom finally left, my grandfather was the same. He would literally take whatever and he would just hit me, right? But I remember the very, very one story that really profoundly, I think, changed. Like, I think not that just changed my life, but changed my outlook was when my grandfather, he was, before he became a Christian in his later years. Before that, he was actually an atheist, and he was more of like he grew up to become a lawyer, and he was no read, no write when he was in his teen years. And so he taught himself how to read and write. And he also put himself to school. He came from a very poor family. And when he became a lawyer, he literally supported all of his brothers and sisters. So in his mind, he's this amazing man. And so he thought, like, if I could do this all without any assistance, I don't believe in God because I did this all by myself, right? And then later on, he became a Christian. And then this long story, but I'm going to have a point. He got a bat and he literally like hit me with a bat on my face. It was like a toy bat, but it was still very hard. And it actually had a bruise on my face because I had talked back to him. Again, potty mouth cat, So I talked back to him. And so he batted me. And so I ran to my bedroom and I just cried and cried and cried because it really hurt. And then literally like maybe about 10, 15 minutes later, my grandfather came to my room and knocked, and he just sat down and he said, I am so sorry that I did that to you. And he said, I was out of control. That is not something that I should have done to you. And I'm sorry. And the reason why I did this is because I just don't want you to grow up with thinking that you can just talk back and not know how to respect your elders. And so he kind of really explained it to me. And it's something that I think my parents really never got a chance to do to me. They more of just like, really punished me right away without explaining. And then my grandfather explained it to me. And I think at that point, I think something shifted inside of me where I'm like, I understand this now, So, gosh, I don't know. I think I was 9 or 10, I think. Yeah. And I understood at that point. So yeah, thanks, Lolo.
So for me, my dad was never around. He would only come home during Christmas for like 30 days. So you can imagine, a kid who has that dad, but only sees your dad for a month out of the year. But to me, that was normal because he was already gone before I was even born. But yeah, I'm his child, just if you're calculating something. My mom got pregnant when he came home at one point. So my dad, he's like, as anyone's dad, I think they're like lions. If they get mad and they start getting loud, I was always scared. And so I don't remember any specific disciplinary story like Kat had so many stories. But what I do remember is that whatever I got in trouble for, I would be so scared when my dad, puffs up and like yells, and then they have that like parent face, that like really stern, that look. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm about to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But what I do remember is that after I get spanked, get yelled at, whatever, I would cry at the moment. But then my dad was always good at taking me to my favorite restaurant, which was Shakey's when I was younger. And then he would explain to me, it's like, you know why you got in trouble. You know why you got yelled at, right? You know why this happened. And I think that was because my dad was an older dad. Here's a nice little, I guess, information for you. My dad is 26 or 28 years older than my mother. Can you imagine? My mom was like 1 and my dad was like 28 years old. But that's not when they met. When my mom was already, I think, 17. Even though, third world country doesn't have so many rules
there.
Not like the rules they have here. But my mom and my dad fell in love, So my mom was a young mom. She had me when she was 20. So when I would get in trouble, I think as an adult thinking back now, I see the difference between an older parent and a younger parent. My mom would be quick to like spank me, but my dad would be more strategic to make sure that I learned something from it. However, my dad wasn't always like that. So if I had to tell a story, I do want to tell a story, but it's not my story. It's my half-sibling story before I pass the mic on to someone else. My half-siblings, they're all... there's 7 of us in total. There's 6 total girls and 1 boy. And they always say, as a man, if you were like a playboy, that your karma is you're going to get all girls. And that's what happened to my dad. He has 1 boy and 6 girls. And so when my half siblings, they're older than me, and they told me the story that they love to play without slippers. They'd run around without slippers. So my dad always told them, wear your slippers. Don't get your feet dirty. You're ladies. So my dad caught them one time playing without slippers. So what my dad did was tied their slippers around their neck and made them walk around the block 10 times. And that's, I think, to this day, my favorite story that they tell me. Because yes, they have to atone their sins. We're walking around the block without slippers on, for sure. So that was, those are some of the disciplinary actions that I remember growing up. Do you guys want to?
For me, I honestly don't remember my parents being disciplinarians. Well, they left when I was 8. I grew up with my aunts and my grandma. But it's mostly verbal, I guess. It's nothing physical. It's like for them, it's like...
You're probably a nice kid.
No, it's just maybe I repressed that memory. But I think because for them it's more fear. It's like they tell you, if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna do that again, you're gonna go to hell. Like those kind of stuff.
I think that's more scarring.
Yeah, it's more psychological scars than like the physical. The physical scars go away, but growing up, they would say that to like me and my siblings, or to their children, or to my cousins, and and it would be like, if you do this, it's just all guilt trip, and I think that's more harmful than the physical discipline. So you end up not doing stuff, and be always conscious of, if I do this, do you think that you're always in fear? You're living in fear. So that was kind of like what it was growing up. Not with my parents though. I don't think they ever did that, but just your relatives and all that. The nannies I grew up with, they never really did anything. So it's more of like relatives seeing that and witnessing that. So
Pauline?
That's it. I can't remember.
Actually, mine, punishment with me, my mom just would, what's Lucy in English?
Pinch.
Oh yeah, she would just pinch me. Lucy. It means pinch. So she would just do that, and other than that, nothing. And my dad, he would just come like once in a while. We'll see him. So it's the same as Sweeney, that he really doesn't punish us. He would, but the one thing that I remember that hit me is when he told me that if you're gonna be bad, we will send you to another place where all the kids are by yourself. So that's what, like, oh shoot, I'm gonna be, I'll be good. So that's it. It's pretty simple for me. Yeah.
You know what though? That's a good point. I think I want to write this down so I won't forget it in my notes. But one day we're gonna have to discuss all the lies that our parents told us of what's gonna happen to us if we do A, B, or C. Because I have some good ones. But anyway, Meg, were you a bad kid, Meg? You look like a really good kid now. Yeah. Like you were a good kid back then. I mean,
remembering the time, the most disciplinary figure was my uncle. They believed in corporal punishment. And so I think the times that I got in trouble with was when I would protest, because I would usually come to my cousin's house for like a weekend, because that was like my happy place. Because back home, I didn't really have a good childhood. I felt I was like a sad, like depressive kid. Like back then, I would not think of that. But like looking back, I never felt loved at home. Being at home was not a happy place. So I would visit my cousin's house, Poyen, Leia. And it was like I would play with them and I would forget about all of my problems at home, because my mom is here in the States, and the only one that loved me was, I felt like the only one that loved me was my nanny. And so when they would not permit me to go to my cousin's house, I would like talk back, because I would like fight to go to a place where I would be happy and I could be free and be myself. And so they would ask me to stand or kneel in the corner, or my uncle would hit me with this belt because I would talk back or fight for like my right to go to a place where I would be happy. So I would remember those times during my childhood.
Wow. You know, what's crazy is because, I'm listening to everyone's story, and I can honestly say I am learning something new about everyone. And I'm like calculating, oh, that's why that's how she was, in school. Or, like Meg, I never saw you as a sad, at least not in high school. I think at some point we got closer in high school, but I always saw you as like a comedian, I guess, in high school. So like the sad part is new to me. And then I think I do want to add back to my story. This is, parents, we love you, but we're spilling the beans. So sorry. This is part of our healing. So don't be hurt, because I do want to say I've written stories about my childhood growing up, and I always say, my mom left us, my dad left us, but I say that in a way that I understood that you had to leave to make, better money. Because one time my mom calls me and she read my excerpt in this book. So it's a book of short stories, and one of them is mine. And I talk about how my parents left us. And my mom calls me, and I realize her feelings were hurt because I'm saying that she left us. But in her, so I had to explain to her, I'm like, I see where you're coming from, because I'm making it seem like you left us, without any responsibility. But I didn't mean it like that. I'm just telling my story, but I don't mean to make you look bad. But I know that you had to leave to make more money. So, on that note, parents, we love you. Now we understand.
Maybe we should have our parents come here in one of the episodes and explain themselves.
Yes, totally. Explain yourself, Mom. It's your turn to be on the spotlight. But for sure, that's a good idea. One day we're going to do that and just see what it's like from a different perspective. But for us, I want to go around to see what you guys understood, because I had to really think back and ask myself, what did I really think of it as my parents being gone? And for me, I don't know if this is 100% true. I'm trying my best to think back, but I think I just accepted that that's what parents do, because I felt like everyone's parents had to leave. If you are not already born in a rich family, you don't have a farm, you don't have a big business back home, your parents at some point had to go to America or any other country to make money and send money back home. That was just something that was normal. And actually, when your parents were able to do that, you were kind of well off. Not all parents could go to America. Not all parents could go to, Dubai. Not all parents could go to other countries. You sort of have to be well off.
Yeah, because you have to go through the interview. You have to show that you're a professional, and there's a reason for you to come back to, to the Philippines, and you're well established. So it's not an easy journey for them as well coming here.
Yeah, I agree. And as a matter of fact, there's something to be excited about when our parents were away, because that meant we will get Balikbayan box.
Chocolates. Lots of them.
Toys.
So when our parents are gone, and you guys, if you have something to add, just grab the mic or something. But when our parents are gone, especially if they're in America, which was for my case, that meant once in a while or twice a year, they would send this big box, huge box, like
Balikbayan
2 of
box.
cats can fit in there, because she can
5
fit in
of
a lot of
cats.
things. 5 of cats. So, and then it would be filled with what? What were your favorites?
For me, my favorites were Lisa Frank stationaries, the clothes, amazing clothes.
They have a distinct smell too.
They have a very, very distinct
Crazy.
smell.
Wow. When we go back to the
It's so
Philippines.
crazy. It's such a distinct smell. And what else? Well, for me, my parents sent me everything that I could ever want. Like they sent me a drum set from the States, because I wanted to learn how to play the drums. So they sent me a drum set. I wanted to learn how to play the piano. They sent me a keyboard. They wanted to play how to play guitar. They sent me a guitar. I mean, not that we couldn't buy it in the Philippines, but somehow the parents just want to send it from the States. There's something about it coming from the States.
And that's one thing that we got excited about. Yeah. When your parents are in the States, they can actually provide you with things if they were just at home doing, menial jobs.
Yeah,
so
those are the things we get excited about.
I remember I would send my mom I would send her a letter, and I would have a list. For example, Archie Comics, Sweet Valley High, Trapper Keeper, Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty. Little Twin Star stationaries.
And then you would be the only one who has that. I remember they sent me like the sneakers where you would step on it, would light up, and I was like, "Oh my god, I had all this."
I was the cool kid because you have those.
But I don't know if I wanted that attention, but it was really awesome. I think, yeah.
And spam. And corned beef. Oh my gosh.
Peanut M&Ms, Crunch.
Everything American.
Sweet. I have a sweet tooth, so it's like all those chocolates. And then growing up, my mom would say I'm chubby, or really, there's no word for chubby in our language. It's just either you're skinny or you're fat. So then I'm like, well, you send me all these chocolates. I mean, who's gonna eat it? But then also when when our parents start to send a box, sometimes there's a little friction with family members, because then they start expecting things for them too. Towels, bed sheets, toothbrush,
curtains, everything.
And what's so ironic are those corned beef and spam, the canned goods. I would never get to eat them because they would just be on the shelf and just for decorations.
What?
Like yes.
Not in my household.
But sometimes they just put them there, but maybe just to show off. I don't know.
But you know what? That makes sense. It's a sign of
is
this a sign of? A sign of well-offness. Yeah, like that.
Because
your parents,
Filipinos are so big with like that kind of stuff.
And I wonder how much status. Yeah,
status. There you go.
And I wonder how much spam really was in the Philippines that we had to wait for them to send us this heavy thing.
Just to add, do you guys remember comparing back then when we were kids and then now, because we didn't have like cell phones, social media? Do you remember sending letters. For example, me, I remember sending letters to my mom and recording in the cassette tapes like voice messages.
Yeah.
Did you guys do that?
Well, I remember sending voice messages with like a cassette recorder, and then you have to mail it to them so that you can tell, like they can hear your voice.
Yeah.
And I remember for communication wise, because it's long distance and it's expensive, and the time difference and all that stuff, it's an appointment. Like they're gonna call on this day at this time. You better be by the phone because just a regular phone. And the calling card, and because it's long distance, remember, like it's expensive to call. So then if they say, oh, your mom's calling, and they still have to call me and I'm in the back of the house or something, the walking from the back of the house is already counting the minutes, so you have to run or you have to sit by the phone so that when your parents call, you're by the phone and you're not wasting money or you're wasting minutes. So yeah.
But I never did the recording thing. I guess I did. My dad bought us a camcorder. So then we can record life moments and he won't, miss any of it. But one of the things my dad did send us, he would just record like the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon. Just when he's gone doing his job, he just record and then send me the tapes. And that's when I see commercials. So then I'm like, Dad, give me that thing, the beads that they put in the hair. But the issue, the challenge with having the dad in the States is that they don't know the girly stuff. So it's hard for me to like the friendship bracelets, so my dad really had to go find it, and he doesn't know how to buy for a girl, so that was my challenge because my dad was in the States before my mom ever was. So yeah, anyone else want to share what you looked forward to with your parents being gone? Did any of you guys miss your parents?
Of course. Yeah.
I want to say I didn't have that, like I miss my parents. I think when they left, I would cry like at that moment. And I remember this pivotal moment in my life where my mom left us for the first time to go to the States. My sister was maybe 3 or 4, and she cried so hard and I felt tears come like about to well up from my eyes. But then big sister has to like kick in and quiet my little sister down. So then I had to repress my own emotions. So at some point, though, we were busy with school. We had school from like 8 to 4. We had activities. So I never was like, oh, I miss my mommy. I miss my dad. I was never.
Think you're used to it. And you're numbed already when it comes to that.
Yeah, so either I'm numb, I'm used to it or something, but it never came a moment where I'm like, I miss my mom, I miss my dad. But when they come home, I'm excited. But I do remember when I was little, my dad, I felt estranged for a moment. Like it takes a couple of days to warm up to my dad when I was younger. But eventually, I learned how to look forward to him coming home, even though I talked to him on the phone. It's just, I don't remember in my childhood missing my parents like I would see the kids now.
I share the sentiment because I think my parents were just calling us every week, if not, no, even more often than that. So they're calling us like every other day, if I remember. And, having friends, I think really helped me kept busy, and my friends were my family. And so
that is true. Yeah. We spent a lot of time together.
I remember the time that when I would have a call with my mom, those were the times like it was like the most comforting times. But there were times that I would have problems in school and problems at home, but I would not be able to tell her everything that I was going through, and I just kept it in. And I wish that she could have called more. And I remember that I was fortunate enough to visit her in every 2 to 3 years during summer break. And those were like the best times that I had during my childhood days.
You visited here in America?
Visited here,
wow,
yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Did you get to visit? Yeah.
Once?
Wow.
Only once. I was 9 when I first visited my parents here in the States, but I do remember that I missed them a lot. Like I think because I was so close to my mom and my dad growing up, and when they left, I just could not understand why they had to leave. I remember so many times where I would cry and I would ask my grandmother, like, why did they have to leave? And my mom would always, whenever she calls, she would always tell me and keep telling me that, like, I love you, but we have to leave to give you a better future. That was always like her speech, we got to give you a better future. And I think I remember just rebelling at some point because my mom really loves my long hair. I had like long, beautiful black hair, and she loves it, and she would always like braid it, and like it was just me and her. It's my time with her every time she would like do my hair for school, right? And I remember when she had left, at some point I was like, I'm done with my hair. So I actually cut my hair really, really short. And I think that was my way. I didn't really realize it back then, but like looking back, I realized that that's my way of rebelling and like just kind of cutting off my ties with my mom because I felt really abandoned. Yeah.
Pao, anything to add before we close it out? Did you miss your dad when he would leave, or you were used to it too?
I was used to it, but then it's not like same as you guys. Like you would not see them for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years. Mine is just like a week, the most a month.
I see.
That's about it.
Yeah.
But most of my life, they were there with me. Yeah.
Well, guys, there you have it. You've gotten to know it. You've gotten to know us just a little bit more, deeper. And you'll probably look back into this episode later and pinpoint exactly why we turned out the way we are in our teen years and even in our adult life now. So that's a little window to how we all grew up. We all have the similarities of our parent or parents leaving us to give us a better life. And we appreciate them for that. And this is episode number 2 of the All Abroad podcast. So on 3, guys, let's say All Abroad podcast. 1, 2, 3. All Abroad podcast. Woo-hoo! Yes.
Thanks again for tuning in into another episode of the All Abroad podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the show, and if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit the like or subscribe button. You can also comment, and we'll be sure to get back to your comments. And if you are listening to us on iTunes, make sure to also rate and review us. Thank you, and we hope to see you soon.